Hey, how you doing? Hey, this is Joe.
My name is Joe.
From PreSonus.
PreSonus is the name of the company that I work for.
And today, wanna show you.
Got something to show you.
That's Studio One
Studio One Artist is the software that I'm talking about right now.
And
AutoTune now works with Studio One Artist because as of version 5, we made it compatible with third-party VST and AU plugins, so you'll be able to do it for the first time in ever. All right.
And the award for dumbest YouTube intro goes to, that's right, Joe Gilder from
PreSonus.
Hey, want to talk to you today about Studio One Artist, which I don't talk a lot about, and I should, and AutoTune. One of the big changes we made when we released Studio One version 5 was we added compatibility for third-party plugins to our Artist version. So we have 3 versions of Studio One. Studio One Prime is free. You can check out Studio One. It works really well, has a lot of functionality for a free software. Studio One Artist, which it allows you to do more and comes included with a lot of our hardware, like our audio interfaces and this I/O station. And then Studio One Professional, which is the full version. Artist has been a great deal for years, but now it's kind of a no-brainer. You can buy something like a Revelator USB microphone, or one of our audio interfaces, or one of our mixers, and you get Studio One Artist, which normally sells for $99, included for free. And now with version 5, you can use all of your third-party plugins with Studio One Artist. That means if you're an AutoTune user, or if you're not and you're thinking about getting into it, but you're thinking, I got to get Studio One Pro and AutoTune, you don't have to. You can stick with Artist and start using your third-party plugins. So let me show you really quickly what I used from AutoTune from the company Antares, and we'll dive into the session of the stupid thing I just recorded and show you. This is the part of the video where I embarrass myself even further. Here's what those tracks sound like without any of the plugins on there.
Hey, how you doing? Hey, this is Joe.
My name is Joe.
From PreSonus.
PreSonus is the name of the company that I work for.
It's just embarrassing. And then here it is with some AutoTune and a few other plugins from Antares on there.
Hey, how you doing? Hey, this is Joe.
My name is Joe.
From PreSonus.
PreSonus is the name of the company that I work for.
Now, obviously, I went for the really dramatic, hard-tuned sound for this example because it's just honestly really fun to mess around with. But AutoTune brings a whole collection of really creative vocal processing to your studio. So if you do a lot with vocals like I do, I'm starting to see how a lot of these different plugins from AutoTune or from Antares allow me to get some different sounds more than just the quote-unquote AutoTune sound. Because you'll notice there's more than just tuning happening here. Now, if you want to go in and get surgical and do really fine surgical tuning, you absolutely can. And Studio One makes it actually a little bit easier. We can actually put AutoTune directly onto a piece of audio using our event effects here. Works just like Melodyne works in Studio One. And we can do all the tuning stuff here, and then we can render that with that orange render button without having to print things down, or sometimes when you're using AutoTune in other systems, you've got to do things like you got to track the vocal, like play it into AutoTune, and then you tune it. You don't have to do that with Studio One, because who needs that kind of, nobody got time for that. But what I was really impressed with was, because I've used tuning software for years, and by the way, there will be people who will say, AutoTune is the devil. If you have to tune your vocals, then you clearly are not a good musician. Here's my counter to that. There were people who said, clean guitar is the only way. If your guitar is distorting at the amp, you are the devil, and you are messing up guitar tone for all of us. All the jazz guys were like, oh man, my clean tone. And the rock guys were like, look at that. Or the blues guys, I turned it up and it made a crunchy sound. Then that became rock and roll, right? So, and there's if you use a computer, then you're the devil to the typewriter industry. There's always upgrades and advancements in technology that help us do things differently, especially in the creative field like making music. Now, is it good to rely on things like tuning and never learn to sing on pitch? Well, no, you want to learn to sing well. I feel like that's so obvious. I'm not sure why we're even talking about it. But using AutoTune and these other plugins as creative tools is really fun. Just like I use different plugins or guitar pedals on my guitar to create new sounds, it's the same thing here. But it's stuff that I couldn't really pull off or make happen using just things like EQs and compressors. There's a couple of cool things here. So I'm actually going to show you, of these different plugins that I used, what I used on this session to get the sounds that I got. By the way, these are all included with AutoTune Unlimited. If you haven't checked that out, you get access to all the different plugins from Antares for one price. So things like AutoTune Pro, AutoTune Artist, AutoTune EFX Plus, and down to some of the other ones I'm going to show you here in this video. So the main vocal, I just kept it pretty simple. I went with, each of these vocals has regular AutoTune EFX on there, which is kind of a simplified version of AutoTune that I've set to the key of G major, and I've told it to only use these specific notes. So it's going to retune super quickly and humanize a little bit, but I wanted it to sound affected. So when you listen to the lead vocal, it sounds like this.
From PreSonus.
And this is all running live, by the way. But to punch things up, and you might notice this whole mix sounds pretty good, right?
From PreSonus.
PreSonus is the name of the company that I work for.
I have not used a single EQ or compressor plugin, anything on this. This is just these plugins. So for this lead vocal, for example, I've got the AutoTune there, and then I've got this Avox Punch plugin that kind of reminds me of a limiter, but it's got this impact knob that when I turn that up, it just makes the vocals sound big and awesome.
From PreSonus.
Like clearly there's some compression limiting going on under the hood there. There's a gain knob and an impact knob and a ceiling knob. So I ended up using that one on several of the plugins, the two lead parts, the one at the beginning and then the one that's doing all the ridiculous stuff. So just those two plugins got me a really cool sound, and no compressor, no EQ, and that started off pretty cool. Now for the harmony parts here, each of these has the regular AutoTune, and then for the two higher ones, the ones that sound like this. So originally, I just had them tuned. So I just turned on AutoTune on each of them, and it sounded like this. And I wanted it doubled, but I honestly just too lazy to go back and sing it again. So I added the Avox Duo plugin. This is literally what it sounds like. It's a vocal doubler. If you don't have time to go back and record, if you don't want to go back and record, or you're just messing around to see if a double even sounds good, for stuff like background vocals and things like that, it sounds really cool. So I changed it to a stereo track. In Studio One, you just do that by clicking this little knob right here. It goes from mono to stereo. And then I added the Avox plugin, set the range, mess with the parameters. Honestly, didn't mess with anything at all, except I just moved the panning left and right, and it made them go from sounding like this, all mono and up the middle, to sounding like this. Now, instead of sounding like two vocals, it sounds like four, panned left and right. Love that. That is such a time saver. I'm all for doing it the quote-unquote right way, record it twice if you have to, but if it's a longer section or you just don't have much time, one track with Avox Duo gets the job done and does it well. I don't hear any weird phasing issues. It seems to work well in the mix. For the low vocal, so this is the bass part. Here's the original with just the tuned vocal. That's so stupid. But I decided to use the Avox Throat plugin. Now, I'll admit, this image, it makes me think something is crawling down this person's throat. But what it does is it changes the actual character of the voice itself. Like, what makes my voice sound different from my dad's voice, he's got a big, deep voice, deeper than mine, is the part of it is the shape of his throat and the characteristic of the way all of this is made. So we're actually doing physical vocal modeling, physical throat modeling, which is just bonkers. But I set it to baritone bass, and I just changed the throat length. So funny to me to change the sound of the vocals. Here's what it sounds like now. So instead of sounding like a guy with not really a bass voice singing, then it sounds like a guy with a real bass voice going, where it's in the upper part of his range rather than the bottom. And I just messed around with these knobs. I think the model throat and added some breathiness to it so it wasn't too dark. But that ended up making it sound like somebody else sang it, which is super helpful because I'm not a bass singer. It's just ridiculous. And then finally, on the silly part where I was just kind of singing stuff all over the place, I had AutoTune first to do the AutoTune thing. Then I had the Avox Punch to get it up in your face. Not too much, just a little bit. And then Avox Warm, which is another plugin that's included with that unlimited bundle. And this gives me access to a really cool kind of tube warmth thing. So you can go super distorted with it, or you can just go kind of saturation with it. But I like the way it sounded. So here's what I had before adding it.
PreSonus is the name of the company that I work for.
So that's just a little bit of crunch. You can hear it on this last note especially. Just kind of cool, like an extra crunchiness on there. That wasn't clipping, that was actually the tube sound. And then I added the Avox Duo at the end so that there was a lead vocal up the middle, and then that weird kind of secondary lead vocal was panned out left and right. And that's super helpful because there's no way I could sing that part exactly twice. Some things can't be doubled, but it'd be cool if they were stereo. This is a cool way to do that. And then you add all that together and you get something like this.
PreSonus is the name of the company that I work for.
And that's even without reverb and any of the other plugins that you might use on a particular mix. Also, one final thing, if you're in a big hurry, there's actually a plugin included called the Harmony Engine. And this thing is a workhorse. Look at it. I mean, it'll create like a 4-part harmony based on a single note. So this is taking the very first harmony, the high harmony, and I just told it what key to play and hit play, and listen to what happens. That's just, it took that one note, it took this note, and just decided what the other notes could be. And you can go in and tell it exactly which chords to play in which place. You can get really tweaky with it. But you can also do like the dumb knuckle dragger version where you just set it up and say, hey, do something in the key of G major. All right, cool. Thanks, bro. See you later. So I didn't use that on this official version, but I wanted to show you that as well. Here's another list of all the plugins that come with that bundle, the AutoTune Unlimited. You can see them there. You can check it out on their website. There should be a link in the description as well for some of the stuff we're talking about here. So just wanted to show that to you. Studio One Artist, which comes with PreSonus hardware like audio interfaces and the USB microphone Revelator. Now, if you get that and you have third-party plugins, they can work too. Very good news. Thanks for watching. See ya.